This is the FratCast, where we're bridging the gap between generations through the sounds and stories of South Texas. In this segment of our special series on conjunto culture, we're sitting down with Ruben Mendoza, longtime drummer and former member of the legendary group Los Chamacos. From packed dance halls to quiet moments of reflection, Mendoza shares his journey through the golden era of conjunto, the evolution of the scene, and what it takes to stay true to your roots while moving the music forward. We'll talk influence, innovation, and the resilience of a sound that refuses to fade. Tune in as we continue to celebrate the music, the heritage, and the people who keep our culture alive. This is the FratCast. First of all, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mendoza. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
So let's get right off into it. We know that you've been the kit for some of the most iconic sounds in conjunto music and for decades now, right?
That's
Anyone
correct.
who followed your career, they know that your playing is instantly recognizable. For example, our early college high school director, Mr. Arredondo.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I met Elias back in 2000. I think I remember he came up to me. He's one of the first persons that I met. Yeah, cool guy.
Yeah, he's like your number one fan.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
So, where do you rank yourself amongst the drummers today, in conjunto or any genre really?
Honestly, I've never been one to rank myself. Only for the simple fact that I kind of leave that to the people to do.
Right.
Um, I've been doing it a long time, and there's definitely a lot of talent that has come up, since I've been doing it. But it does feel good, being in the industry for 30 years now, and being able to continue to do what I love, and having all these youngsters coming up, and getting their feedback on as far as the respect that I've gained and I've earned throughout all these years. It's a good feeling. So, but to rank myself, I've never been one to do that. I like to leave it up to the people to do.
Right. That's very respectable. I would ask one follow-up to this question. I know you said you don't rank yourself, but could you tell us what do you think sets your drumming apart from others?
I would have to say I play with a lot of passion. I play with a lot of heart. I've never been one to read music, so that's kind of different from others. But I think that's what separates me from others, as far as not saying that they don't play with love or passion, but I know what I play with my feel and with my heart.
So I want to take it back for just a moment. You've had a very long career, but it took off when you played with the legendary Mingo Saldivar. Um,
Yeah.
so could you tell me a bit about your start working with Mingo?
So Mingo, I got the call back in 98. Cell phones weren't really big back then, so it was a landline call. I was 18 years old. I'll never forget. I was nervous. He gives me a call, and he wanted to see if I was interested in maybe just helping him out. It was just going to be a gig to help him out. At the time, I lived in Houston, Texas, and his drummer, which is Charlie Torres, which is a legend and one of my favorite drummers as well. He had got put in the hospital. He had some kind of illness, and so I got a hold of Mingo, and Mingo asked if I would be able to help him out just that weekend, and I said sure. I'd be honored. Of course, I was nervous, and the rest was history. Shortly after then, I became part of Los Cuatro Espadas, and I got to play with Mingo for 3 years.
Well, really great start, all with the landline.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so after Mingo, you made another major move in your career and you joined Jaime Danda. Um, that marked a new chapter for you and your music. So could you tell us how you ended up with Jaime after Mingo?
So a lot of people don't know this, but before Jaime, I was playing with Juan T. Moreno, which is he was a very legendary bajo sexto player who actually played with Jaime back in the day. I got to play with him for about a good 4 years before I actually joined Domingo. So back then, Jaime was his family band was Los Chamacos Raúl Vianda, and so my mom, my dad, my uncles, they were all in the bar business. They had nightclubs back there in Houston. So as a kid, I would follow, Los Chamacos, and I was their first Weedle player. I was 7 years old, and I would get on stage playing the Weedle. So as the years went by, I still communicated with Jaime, when they would go and play in Houston. I was probably about 15, 16 years old, and I was getting into the dances when you had to be 21 or over. So I always kept in contact with Jaime. Then he later found out that I was a drummer. That being said, when Hector Theo, which was a drummer before me, he decided to part ways. That's when I got the call from Henry Dianda, which was Jaime's brother, the manager at the time, and the rest was history.
So
It's a long story, I know.
yeah, it is. It's very, very interesting story. So the brother, you got the call from his brother. That's what started it.
Yeah.
Taking that into account, let's fast forward to today. You're still out there doing your thing, and fans are still following you as they did back then. So I want to talk about what you're up to at this moment. Who are you playing with now?
So that being said, after 24 years of being the drummer for a very iconic band as Los Chamacos, I decided to part ways with the band this last August of 2024. So I began, just helping bands out, filling in whenever somebody needed some help here and there. So then I get a call from this band they're out of Gregory, Texas, as a matter of fact, here by Corpus. And they are the 181 Boys, which is Joe and Manuel Solis. They come from musical background, their families, and so they gave me a call one day, and they're like, "Hey, you think you can help us out? We're gonna be in Raymondville, and we need a drummer. My brother Manuel can't make it." And I said, "Sure, I'd be honored." So fast forward, we did the gig, and I was just gonna be helping them out, and next thing you know, I've been here 8 months in, so I'm a part of the 181 Boys now.
It's great. So how does your current work compare to earlier parts of your career?
I would say it's I guess I'm more experienced, you could say now, more disciplined when it comes to drumming. So I think that it's like anything else, any job that you take, any trade that you do, all that is just you're actually building experience, So I think that's what helped me, all those years of doing what I've done, and that's drumming, helped me within, taking that with these guys and putting my experience alongside these guys. And I've always said God has a plan for everybody, and I guess this is our plan, And I've always respected the way Harvey played the bass, and I've always said, always had said, I would love to play bass, just even if it's for one gig alongside that guy. And now we've done a few shows together, so, and more to come.
Awesome. I want to shift our focus a little bit now to more opinionated topics. So
Okay.
many fans, they look at the late 90s, early 2000s as something special, a kind of a golden era for Tejano and Conjunto music. And you were right there in the middle of that wave. So in your opinion, were the late 90s and early 2000s really the golden era for Conjunto?
For Conjunto, I would say it was more for Tejano. I've tried telling people, that Tejano was real huge in the mid 90s. It was real big in the 2000s. In my opinion, I felt like Tejano was kind of like declining in the beginning of the 2000s. And let me remind you, Chamacos, yes, they were considered a conjunto, but they were also considered Tejano, right? So, but conjunto, in my opinion, growing up in it, conjunto was really huge, like in the late 80s, beginning of the 90s, and it just started to fade away. But now I feel like it's starting to make another push again, because you have all these young conjuntos that are coming out, and they're really great at it. So I feel that they've revived the genre of conjunto.
So in that sense, the revival, let's go back to when you say it was starting to decline. Why do you think For that period, the youth, they weren't as connected to this genre as they were previously.
It has a lot to do. I've always said everything starts at home. Um, from the way you raise your kids to, discipline to respecting. I've always said that if you don't show your kids the music that you grew up on, well, they're never going to know what it is, right?
Right.
So I think that's where the disconnection has happened, that we as parents have forgotten, to educate our kids on the music that we grew up on. Because now, of course, all you hear is like, you have these kids that are listening to hip hop, which is, I like all genres of music. You have a lot of these younger kids listening to country, you know, and I feel that sometimes you got to pop in, even if you have a cassette player, pop in some old school, conjunto, because that's the way I was raised. My parents, that's all you would hear in my household. They were either jamming to Los Dos Gilbertos, the Fantasmas del Valle, all these conjuntos from the valley, because my parents are from the valley. So I think that had a lot to do with them educating me. But to answer your question, I think that all starts at home, educating your kids on the music that you grew up with so that we can keep it going and they can pass it on to their kids and their kids can pass it on to your grandkids. So it's all when it comes to is just educating your kids with the music that you grew up with.
So so everyone's got people that help shape their sound, whether directly or from afar. So I want to talk about who helped mold your sound. Who are your biggest musical influences, you would say?
My biggest influences, so there was a drummer from Houston. He played with a band that I actually had the honor of playing with way after he got out. His name was Ivan Diaz. He was a drummer for a band called JJ Los Centellas, which is a big band back in the '80s. Again, when conjunto was booming, right? He was one of my biggest influences. And then also there was another friend of mine who he's no longer with us. He's passed on. His name was Ismael Torres, who was the original drummer for David Olivares. He was just a phenomenal friend. He's the one that encouraged me. Hey, you know what? I see that you like the drums, and he would let me get up on his drum set at my mom and dad's bar, and he would let me like just bang on them. And he was one of my biggest influence, I would have to say, because he's the one that encouraged me. Hey, come on! I think you want to play, and I think this is the instrument for you. So come try it. And as soon as he let me get up on stage and play, I mean, I was hooked. And of course, throughout the years, I looked up to Jesse Martinez from the Hometown Boys. You have who else? There was so many of them. Robert Riojas used to be a drummer for Tony De La Rosa. You have who else? I like Juana Chavarron, who's a totally different genre of music. That's more norteño music. But again, I like listening to all genres, but I really think that the guy who's really like keeping and holding it down to where people are really like, wow, is Rene from Intocable. He's an amazing drummer too, who I look up to.
So far we've talked a lot about the past of Conjunto and your current career prospects, but I want
Hmm.
to take a look ahead for a second. So the genre is still alive, but it's evolving, right? What do you see when you look at the future of these musical genres? Do you see younger musicians getting into conjunto?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I see it now. I follow a lot of these young guys on Facebook, and I see that they're really really great musicians. Like they have great ears. They have when I say ears, I mean tempo. They got great tempo. They got a great ear for music. But I honestly see it within the next 10 years. I really feel that the genre of conjunto is going to take the next step, something that it should have did many years ago. But I guess it's become like I would say the word hip. It's become a little hip for the younger people. Like yourself. Like you know a lot about conjunto now, right?
Right.
And you're educated by, I'm sure, Mr. Redondo there.
Every day.
And that's where it starts. That's my point. You see, and that's where I'm going with it. There's something I don't know if you're really familiar with this, or if you've heard. There's actually a conjunto class in the valley that they teach conjunto. They teach accordion, they teach bajo sexto, they teach drums, they teach the bass, and then they have a full concert. And I think that's what we need to enforce in a lot of these schools these days.
So, building off of what you just said, how do we turn conjunto from, grandpa's music,
Mm-hmm.
older generation music into something younger people can vibe with, consider hip today?
Um, how do we do that? Just continue to play, the songs that we grew up on, the songs that these legends left us, because they left us a lot of music to continue to be playing. And there's nothing wrong. There's no limits with maybe changing it up, adding a little spunk to it, adding a little rock beat to it, because that's what Chamacos would do. We would add a little rock to it, and it would sound cool. Like, wow, that sounds cool, and so basically, we want to make things sound cool for the younger generation so they can get into it and enjoy to follow it so that we can continue to make it grow. So yeah, I mean, I think making it cool again, making it interesting for these younger people to want to be involved in it and want to play it.
So, I want to take this last segment of the interview and go into the man behind the music. We know you as the guy on stage, the one holding down the groove and the drum beat.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious about the music that moves you when you're just chilling out, leisurely. So what kind of music do you listen to in your free time? I know, although I do know you said everything floats your boat.
I like a lot of I like some Michael Jackson. I like to listen to the old school Michael Jackson. I like to listen to old corridos like Ramon Ayala. I like these new guys that are like really exploding. Frontera. I mean, those guys are amazing, and they don't do anything that's hard. It's very simple, and I think that that's an awesome thing too. They move me. I like a lot of what is this? I like some banda music because I like the lyrics that these singers are singing. The songwriting is phenomenal. Um, I like some rock. You got Guns N' Roses. I grew up on that stuff. And then don't get me wrong, I listen to a little bit of Drake here and there.
So
Because
here's
I have a younger son, see,
uh,
and when we get in his car, it's like, all right, Dad, no more conjunto, we're jamming my stuff. Okay, well, fair enough.
mhm. So a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
All right. So in addition to the kind of music you listen to in your free time, well, when you tell people about your little bit of everything taste, what's something surprising that they'd find about your personal music?
They'll look at me and say, "Aren't you a conjunto drummer? And you like all this kind of music?" Yeah, but it's just music. When you have music in your blood, when you have music in your heart, only thing your hook, to me, the hook will always be the beat. If you have the beat, you got me. You got me hooked. But yeah, I've gotten that. People saying, "Man, you like this music and you're a conjunto drummer?" I love music, period.
All right. So, do you have any last words for your fans or our listeners on this episode, Mr. Mendoza?
I do. First and foremost, thank you to you. Thank you to Mr. Arredondo for giving me this opportunity to speak, to everyone who's interested in wanting to play conjunto or tejano, whatever genre it is that you want to play. Do it. Do it because, like they say, we only live once. We only live once, and you have to follow your dreams. And I've always said, don't talk about it, be about it. I've always said that because, like I said, we only get one opportunity in life, and you got to make the best of it. And like I said, thank you to you, thank you, Mr. to Arredondo. It's a great thing that you're doing. Keep it up. This is awesome that you find interest in us as older musicians in our genre, and I think it's a great thing. And everybody who's coming up, all these drummers, all these accordion players, musicians that are just getting started, follow your dreams, and make it happen. Make it happen.
Us here at the FratCast want to thank Mr. Ruben Mendoza for agreeing to log on for this exclusive interview, as well as our audience for tuning into this episode of the FratCast, Legends of South Texas. I'm Jathan Ten Cate, and remember, it ain't a podcast if it ain't the FratCast. We'll see you next time.